I mean, I think we can get started. I think there's only one other person we're expecting, and she's marked as tentative. So I don't know that we need to wait. So we can call our meeting to order. And the first thing, which you'll be hearing every time we have a meeting, is a review of the public meeting requirements and process. So I'm Greg McMahon. I am a ARPA liaison for DDS and a co-chair of this meeting. And so the meetings for the advisory committee are public meetings as defined by the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act and need to follow public meeting guidelines. Because it's held virtually, it will be recorded and made available to be viewed on the DDS website. Committee members have to make a good faith effort to state our names and our titles each time we speak. So if there's somebody on the phone, they know who's speaking. And if you have comments or concerns, you can raise your hand, but there is no public comment portion to the meeting. Members of the public are able to join, watch, and listen only. So that will be our process. So please bear with us if we remind you frequently to state your name and title or role if you neglect to do so. I know last time I think Shannon was really good at it, but the rest of us had to kind of concentrate on doing it. So we do have guest presenters today. Pam Fields and Kat, who doesn't have your last name down, Kat, I'm sorry, will be presenting to kind of explain a number of services to continue our education of what it is that the incentives will be about. So welcome and thank you for coming. And we will couple of other business before we get the Mid-State ARC going. So I have a couple of updates. One is that the communication vendor that we will be working with to help with our promotion of the transformational process is still in the process of being selected. And there may be some clarifications on the RFP that was submitted so that we can make sure we get a vendor who can do the work well for us. So I'm not sure how long that'll take, but it shouldn't be too long before we have that vendor in place. The second vendor for the transformation plans that are part of the whole transformation initiative has been selected, and that is Deloitte. And they are going to be starting next week to begin to develop work with agencies to develop and implement transformation plans. And Shannon and I added an agenda item to this meeting, thinking that we cover a lot of ground at each meeting, and then when we end, you may have some thoughts or things that come to mind after the meeting. So we wanted to make sure we created some space for folks to have comments or raise questions or anything as a result of our last meeting. So we can move on to that. And if there's any thoughts, questions, or anybody wants to process anything from our last meeting. For future meetings, maybe if you take the opportunity to look at the minutes, if you haven't already, and kind of think about that. We just threw that at you just now, but if you have anything, and at any meeting, that'll be a standing agenda item. Okay. If there is nothing on that item, then I think we can go ahead and move on to Pam and Kat. And again, thank you for being available and willing to present to us. We're looking forward to hearing all that you have to offer.
No problem. 2 questions before we start. Greg, this is Pam Fields, CEO at Mid-State ARC and the ATEX Center in Connecticut. I needed to know to get you to let me share our screen so we can put up our presentation, and also How long were we presenting? I just want to make sure I stop at the right time.
When you and I spoke, I think you said 45 minutes.
Okay,
And we were
perfect,
leaving 15 minutes for questions.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So do I need to do something so that you can share your screen?
Well,
Or
right
your...
now it says only the meeting organizers and presenters can share.
Oh, okay. Is it something?
Greg, this is Shannon Giacovino, DDS Ombudsperson. Pam, do you see anything on your screen that says share with an upwards arrow?
That my arrow is like faded, and it, when I go to it, it says only meeting organizers and presenters can share.
So we're learning as we go.
And I wonder if you go into the three dots.
I'm looking. This is Shannon Giacovino, DDS Ombudsperson. I am looking there and I don't see what we can do. If it's possible, if it's at all possible for you to get started, I will reach out to someone to see if they can help us.
Okay.
Would that work? Okay.
Sure.
Or Pam, is it something you could email to us and then we could then put it up for you?
I could, let me just, I have to stop this. I have it presenting, so let me just end the show. So I can send you a copy. There is just one slide presentation in there that will be missing because it was a video and the video is large and it wouldn't send. So
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. Pat, you have your hand up. You're muted.
Okay, I'm just reading, I looked it up. It says open a chat window in Teams. You have to open a chat window and share and use the share content button in the upper right-hand corner of that window. Or maybe Pam has to do it.
I just opened the chat. I can, I don't see a share.
It's not, sorry, this is Kevin Arces, self-recording of DDS. It's not in the chat. It's a little more to the right. It says there's a share button all the way at the top right. But oh, I see now.
Yeah,
That's never happened before in Teams, though.
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I don't see that
The share button?
Button.
Well, I do, but that's the thing. It says only meeting organizers and presenters can share, and that's never happened before. I never dealt with this situation. Huh.
Microsoft says on the sharing toolbar that you have to give control.
Exactly. That's how it is in Zoom
Right.
as well, but I don't know how to get control. I know how to do it in Zoom, but not in here.
Right. This is Shannon Giacovino, the DDS Ombudsperson. We need to talk to the person who started the meeting, and I can do that. So Pam, if you can send the presentation, I will reach out to see if we can, how we can give you control so you can share the video when the
Okay.
time comes.
This is Pam from Midstate ARC. What email do I send it to?
Why don't you send it? This is Shannon Giacovino, DDS Ombudsperson. Why don't you send it to Greg? He can share his screen while I try to figure out the rest of it.
This is Pam Fields from Midstate. Greg, could you share your email with me?
Sure. This is Greg from DDS, Greg McMahon from DDS. It's Gregory.McMahon, MCMAHON, @ct.gov.
Gregory.McMahon, MCMAN.
MCMAHON.
This is Denise Palladino, SD Director. I was going to say, Greg, put it in the chat, then she could just click it and send an email to you, but.
Oh, well, there you go.
I just sent it, so hopefully you're going to get it. This is
Okay.
Pam Fields, Midstate ARC.
This is Kevin Arce, self-help coordinator for DDS. I just want to make sure, is there no, maybe I shouldn't ask. Forget it. I just don't want to like, I say, say something that I think might be wrong, even though I don't think it is.
We won't, this is Greg from DDS. We won't judge if you have something you think you.
I just want to ask, is the PowerPoint the only thing we're going to be covering today? That's all.
This is Greg McMahon from DDS. Yes, pretty much. It's going to be the majority of what we're doing.
Okay, so, okay. But, okay. This is Kevin Arce, self-help coordinator for DDS. I just want to make sure because like I've dealt with these kind of situations before. Maybe I can help out in some way. Just saying.
This is Pam Fields from Midstate. Greg, did you get it?
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. No, not yet.
This is Kevin Arce, self-help coordinator for DDS. He just put it in the chat, right, Greg?
Yeah, just in case there was a typo in the email, I typed it into the chat.
And sorry, this is Kevin Arce, self-help coordinator for DDS. Pam, just
Yep.
let you know if you want to like skip all the typing, just hold control and left click on the email, and it'll automatically open something in the in the Outlook. That way you can just automatically send it. Did you get that?
Yes, it's Pam from Midstate. I just sent it again.
Okay.
And it came.
So do you want us to go ahead and start while you're trying to bring it up?
Yeah, I think I'm only a matter of seconds from bringing it up.
Okay.
Thank you all for your patience.
This is Kevin, solver coordinator. Thank you for trying, because this is the first I've ever dealt with this situation.
Do you have it
Kevin,
up?
solver coordinator. I see the PowerPoint. Just thought I'd let you know.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is Greg McMahon from DDS. Just, I think you'll need to tell me when to advance a slide.
This is Pam from Midstate. I'm going to go ahead and start, and Kat and I will be talking. She'll introduce herself when we start, and then we'll be talking throughout the presentation. So our first slide is just navigating the journey to independence, assistive technology at its best. This is what we've been working on since 2014. We're so glad that this committee is together, and it's going to be looking at how to move forward with this. Next slide, please. The shifts in support from group home living to independent living, I think, is the concentration, and hopefully we got that right. And now I'm going to hand it off to Kat Wood, who is the Director of Community Integration here at Midstate ARC, and she runs all of the independent in-home supports, independent living, and cluster living for our agency. So Kat Wood, I'll let you take, and you can progress to the next slide.
Good morning. This is Kat Wood. As Pam stated, I'm the Director of Community Integration here at Midstate ARC. It's a pleasure being here with everyone today. So for this one, the personal support team for the person drives the process. And what that pretty much means is this amazing team that each individual has that, holds the DDS case manager, themselves, their guardians, any family members or friends, that are, play a major role in their life, kind of sit down together, discuss where, they want to see the individual going, what they're working towards. And then we meet and kind of discuss things. So usually when I'm meeting with someone, it means that they're looking for individual home supports. And there's just actually a different array of different means of what the supports would look like and where they would take place. A lot, like the first one starts with identifying a place in the community that someone wants to live. So this could be independent living, that means living in an apartment by themselves or with a roommate, or it could be moving into a cluster setting, which we'll discuss a little bit further down in the slides. It identifies the staffing supports needed. So in this process, again, when we're meeting with the team, we're kind of talking about what supports are going to be needed in order to make the individual as successful and independent as they could be, and kind of reaching the goals that they have in place. There's a kind of array of assessments that we look for when we're meeting with people. So, you know, when I'm having that first initial meeting, kind of depending on the type of supports that they're looking for, whether it's in the house or they're going to be looking to move into the community, into an apartment on their own, we like to have some assessments that are done, and this kind of helps gauge where the person is right now. So where they are, the type of supports they need, areas that they're really, really strong in, maybe some areas that they could use additional supports. And with the assessment, we're able to see what we could put in place to help them be successful through assistive technology. We have, after the assessments, again, like after they're done, I'm reviewing them, I'm meeting with the triage team, we're making recommendations, we're reviewing all the programs that are currently in place, as well as their IP and LON. And then kind of just, you know, it says revising services that needed. So it's really just making sure that everything is tailored to help support them. If we could go to the next slide. Oh, this one came up blank.
There you go. You just have to click it twice. This is Pam Fields from Midstate. There you go.
Yeah, if you click it a few times, it'll pull up all the different services. Thank you.
That's it.
So, you know, right now there's, again, an array of services that are available. Our concentration really is on individual home supports in the family home, individual home supports in their own apartment, and then the individual home supports in the cluster. You know, a great starting point, I always say, is if they could, you know, we could start with the individual home support when somebody's already, you know, living at home with their family or whoever their support might be at the time, just to kind of help work with them to gain the experience that they need in order to be successful when they're out there in the community on their own. And I hate to say on their own as if we're still not supporting them, but on their own, and, you know, thinking that they could be more independent and rely less on the support from staff or, you know, a family member to do like the basic day-to-day living things. Moving into the cluster, I kind of feel like is like that next step, because you have that independence, but there's still a little more staffing support needed to kind of help prepare someone prior to moving independently into their own apartment. So, you know, with the cluster, which is just I absolutely love the cluster. I'm so glad that that's in place now. It's that great stepping stone, like I said, kind of between the family's home or even someone who resides in a group home looking to move into independent living. You know, their supports during the day really is based
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yep.
This is Pam Fields from Midstate. Do you want me to progress? Because I think I have the wrong slide up for what you're talking about. Do you want me to go to the cluster slide?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, if you skip to the next one, we'll.
This is Greg from DDS, Greg McMahon from DDS. I just want to make sure, it looks like you have control now, and I
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Pam. So with the cluster, like I was saying, the cluster's, you know, set up for someone that's really kind of that stepping stone into complete independent living, or it might be somebody where this really is the best, you know, place for them, the best type of support, and, you know, they still get that independent living piece of it. The staffing that they receive during the day really is kind of based off of their line score. And then we kind of gauge it through like setting up the hours depending on what their needs are. For the cluster, there's that third shift component, which is great. There's a third shift person that's, you know, there to kind of help support and monitor the assisted technology that's inside of the apartments to kind of be that second set of eyes and support for someone that may be required. The cluster, really it's set up in a complex where, we kind of have like 25% of the complex. We have individuals residing in their own apartments. Currently, right now, we have a cluster in Meriden. And it's really working really, really well. Like the families that I've spoken to and the referrals that come in, it's just really new and interesting for everybody. And it's a comfort, like I said, for some people, it's the stepping stone before moving into independent living. But then for a lot of people, this really is just what they need. They have their independence, but there's still that little bit of additional support that makes people feel comfortable. The next would be, I think it's the next slide, Pam, or is it the first one? So somebody moving into their own apartment, which is always, it's ultimately it's the goal. I think it's those things I always say that we take for granted when we're out there and we're living on our own. I've met with a lot of teams where it's understandable. They're nervous. It's nervous for the team. It's, nerve-wracking for the individual, their family members, to think, that somebody's going to be out there living on their own. How are they going to get supported? Who's going to be there? And it's just, the more we talk and we're going through assessments and we're looking at the technology, we realize like how successful people really can be. Obviously, there's things that we can, assistive technology does not support, that they may require more staffing support, but it is possible for someone to be able to live, in their own apartment with all this additional programs and the technology that we could put in place for them. And then the family home, we kind of talked about at first, where I was saying like, this is really the best time when someone's living at home to really start to put in the supports for a staff to be in there and working with somebody. It's really hard to kind of just take somebody who's lived in a family home and then all of a sudden just put them into an apartment and have it kind of start there brand new and fresh. If we could, ensure that there's, even if it's minimal supports in the house, some type of support to work on those goals towards independence. The reality is you're living at home, you're taking care of your loved one, you're doing things for them, but not really allowing them to be independent and learn how to do things on their own. And it's so valuable to be able to start when you're at home.
And Kat, if I could just jump in, this is Pam Fields from ARPA. We've had a lot of success starting where the person lives and putting the assessments through and introducing assistive technology, which we're going to talk about shortly, in order to get them prepared. And there's really two ways to do it in their own home, because some people are living in their own home and they're not ready to move out to independence. They may be younger, just graduating, or maybe even before graduation. And the supports can be put in to help the family teach the person independence as they're growing for years before they move out into an independent placement. So it's not just something that is just for the transition. It can also be a resource for families to help them when they're going out and they want a little more control over what's going on in the house, and put in some safety protections for their child. So there's a lot of other ways to use the family supports in this way. And I just wanted to clarify that a little. Sorry, Kat, go ahead.
Yep, fine. Hi, this is Kat, Director of Community Integration at Midstate ARC. If we could jump to the next slide. So some of the different assessments, that we were talking about earlier that we do, one is the independent living assessment. So as a referrals coming in, both for IHS supports, as well as somebody who's looking to move into like the cluster independent living, we do the assessment really just to kind of gauge to see where someone's at. I like to usually have at least two different people do the assessment. One person, whether it's another agency that's been working with the individual, and then maybe the family member with the individual to go through the assessment, just so that we could get kind of a couple of different point of views. Because a lot of times, you'll have the family do an assessment and they see things one way, and then you have, an agency that's in there providing services and they see the individual doing something completely different. So again, it's just great to be able to have multiple assessments to kind of look at when we're trying to figure out the best way to support somebody. There's the assisted technology assessment. So if somebody is, looking to move into independent living or the cluster, I'll reach out to one of the staff here who do the assessments and pass along the information, kind of connect them with the team. Also just if it's IHS services in the house, when I'm talking about IHS services, I'm always kind of talking about technology so that we could start, getting an idea and prepping somebody, because at some point they're going to want to be able to move out and live independently, just like any of us would. There's medical assessments that are done with the healthcare coordinator. A lot of our individuals who are living independently, we want to make sure that all their medical needs are being met. So we try to, connect them with a nurse that could do the healthcare coordination. Transportation assessments, anyone who's not familiar with using any of the ADA or public transportation, we usually try to connect them with the Kennedy Center so that they're able to have an assessment done and see where they are as far as independently utilizing transportation. Behavioral and clinical assessments, that's if needed. We have a behavioral department that I would connect the team with if, the team's feeling that there is some behavioral supports that are going to be required as well. And then the risk assessment is our safety assessment. And that's to really kind of just, again, look at to see where somebody is. A lot of times, we look at moving people out into the community and we're thinking that they're safe at home. But again, they're surrounded by loved ones and constant support, which is a lot different than living independently on your own. And there's so many things that are really important that we need to know that they potentially may struggle with. So we could try to help them be as successful as possible from the beginning, knowing that along the way, there's potentially going to have to be some changes or adjustments made or additional assistive technology in place. But again, we want to start off on the right foot and make sure that they are successful.
And this is Pam Fields from Midstate. Before we go to the next slide, I just wanted to let the committee know we can send you copies of all these assessments if you wanted to see those. We also took a lot of the information that we broke down about in-home supports, own apartment, family, home, and cluster. We created a packet for the families that goes over all the services available, all the resources available. So we can send you that too. It is titled through Midstate because we use it for people moving into our agencies, but it should be the basic system that's used throughout the state. We tried to make sure all the information was there. So if you want that at the end, Greg and Shannon, just let me know and I can forward you all those documents.
This is Greg McMahon from DDS. I think we would. So yes, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Hi, this is Kat Wood again, Director of Community Integration with Midstate ARC. This slide is about supports provided to the individuals. As with any independent living program, the intent of the program is not to do things for the person, but to encourage them to be as independent as possible and to connect them to the resources needed to enable and encourage them to be as independent as possible. The staff is to be a resource, mentor, and community connector. This one is a huge one for me. It's something that I work very, very closely with staff continuously on, and that's ensuring that we are there to help support the individuals that we serve in being independent versus doing things for them. One of the challenges that I've run into quite frequently with people moving into independent living is, the team's mindset that the staff are supposed to come in and do everything in the apartment for the individual. If the individual's not doing it, staff are supposed to be in there. They're supposed to clean their houses. They're supposed to cook. But the reality is, what are we then teaching the individual? Are we really then teaching them to be independent and successful and living out on their own? Well, we're not if we're doing everything for them. So it's really just making sure, again, through the assessments, really being able to gauge where somebody's at and what we could put in place to help support them. There's so many different options out there, and again, it's trial and error, but it's possible. And it's just making sure that the team is all on the same page with understanding that we are trying to teach them to be independent and successful. And it can't be done if we're not allowing them the ability. benefits, resources, and funding available for independent living. So usually when somebody's coming in, these are those things that I kind of go over with the team to discuss what's out there. Because of course, one of the main concerns always is finances. How is my loved one going to be able to afford to live in an apartment on their own? How are they going to be able to, pay all their bills? Do their grocery shopping? How are they going to get to where they need to go? And there's a lot of benefits out there. So I try to talk about rent subsidy, and helping, the family or the individual we're supporting, through our agency with our benefits coordinator. We're applying for rent subsidy. We're applying for DSS to ensure all that's in place, especially when it's somebody coming from a family home. A lot of times, a lot of these things aren't in place already. So we're kind of starting from the ground up, looking into heating assistance if needed, Wi-Fi and stuff. In the apartments with the assisted technology, you have to have Wi-Fi, which we all know could be very, very expensive, but there's different programs out there. So we really just try to look through all the different options that are available, and try to get as much as possible to help somebody be able to afford their bills and live independently.
So this is Pam Fields. I'm going to take back over. Thanks, Kat, for that presentation. So I'm just going to share a little video of Raymond. He was the first gentleman at our agency who moved into his own apartment from a segregated setting back in 2014. And this is his success story. So I'm hoping it will share with you. Give me a second to move it to that screen. Can you see it, or do I need to reshare? Can you see the video?
This is Shannon Jacobino, DDS. I'm Bud's person. We see a screen, Pam.
Yeah.
And yeah, it looks like you're going to click the video button right now. There
Okay,
you go.
perfect.
In Health News tonight, a state-of-the-art home designed for independent living.
It's for people in Connecticut with intellectual disabilities. News 8's medical reporter Jocelyn Lamita got a tour of this unique high-tech environment. Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi, Ann. Hi, Darren. The latest technology all in one home, just so people like Ray Moncrief can live a more independent life and better manage their health.
Come on in. Welcome to my home. Mi casa, su casa.
Ray Moncrief moved out of a group home and is now living on his own. A significant accomplishment.
I have a processing disorder.
Ray is among thousands in Connecticut with intellectual disabilities, but among the few.
You're home, but you're alone, but you're not really alone.
Living in a high-tech home.
More tools for people to be able to live independently on their own. Not everybody wants to live in a group setting.
Thanks to a three-way partnership, the Connecticut Department of Developmental Services, ARPA of Meriden-Wallingford, and assisted living technology.
The challenge was to make sure we had everything. I think we were concerned that we were going to miss something, and then a level of his care wouldn't be met.
Take a look around. There are all kinds of special safety features. An alarm at the door.
Somebody will come and say, call me and say, why is the door left open? Are you okay?
There's a panic button in the bathroom and a portable one for emergencies.
What's in the kitchen is another technology device that ends up saving lives.
An automatic timer that turns itself off if the stove is on for too long. To better manage his overall health, his disabilities, and his diabetes, there is a med minder, Ray's favorite technology.
Is that I don't have to keep pre-pouring my pills and popping up pills and keep pre-popping. It's easy, it's quick, it's simple, it's 1, 2, 3.
But it also sends an alarm and an email to Ray's aid if he doesn't take the meds on time.
Can you hear me, Matt?
And talking to Matt Patre is as simple as Skyping.
And that's why I think the Skyping came in so necessary. He hasn't had to use it as much as we thought he would, but it would give him a face-to-face contact anytime he needed assistance with things.
It may be the first one where we've actually helped someone with such comprehensive needs move out of a group home situation.
A move that's also more cost-effective for the state.
Okay, are we back to Raymond now? This is Pam Fields from Midstate.
This is Shannon Jacobino, DDS. I'm Bud's person. We're back to Raymond.
Thank you. Okay, so Kat just covered the assistive technology piece of our the service piece of our presentation. And I just wanted to reiterate, it's really a continuation of services and it's all individualized. There's no one service that fits everyone. Everything's done through the team. Everything's individualized for the person, no matter what setting they're in. And you just saw Raymond, and a lot of people will see that video and say, well, he looks very capable, and my family member doesn't have the skills he has. Well, we've helped people who have lived in 24-hour group home settings with staff move into their own apartments with a variety of different levels, and we can get into different scenarios after if you would like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through the assistive technology that we do in these settings, because this is the part we feel is critical. This is what has allowed so many people to move to that independent setting and stay successful. As we said before, Raymond started his journey in 2014. He's still living in his own apartment in New Haven. He's moved 3 times. His assistive technology has moved with him. He actually moved to another agency that was closer to his mom. So it's not something that is agency specific. It really is something that is person specific. So the assistive technology refers to any product. You're going to see a lot of high-tech products that we use, but there's a lot of other simplistic products, jar openers. It could be, shower handles to get in and out of the shower. We can use simple pieces of assistive technology, or we can use complex pieces depending on the individual. So it is a big variety of high tech to low tech, and we all do low tech solutions. We have jar openers, the rubber mat things that we have in our house to open our jars. There's just a ton of different pieces we use throughout our house, even back scratchers. They have the same type of device that allows you to put cream on your back for someone who lives by themselves. So there's just a big variety of devices. And as Kat said, with those assessments, it's critical as we do the assessments because it allows us to know where the gaps are. And then we can look at assistive technology to fill those gaps. So the types of technology we tend to use in supported living are remote monitoring systems such as the ARMS. And we're going to talk about the ARMS later because that's the system we use. But there are many systems located throughout the United States that offer different levels of remote monitoring service, but they're basically the same service. It just comes from different providers, so or different owners of the remote monitoring system. So each of these systems offer sensors throughout people's apartments, cameras, door locks, video doorbells, personal emergency response devices like the little device that you saw in Raymond's video, the panic device. You can also get one called the Bella that goes out with you in the community that can locate, the emergency help for you if you need it, or even a family member. There's smart lights, which I think we're all starting to use throughout our homes, control of the thermostat, carbon and smoke detectors, and smart blinds. There's a lot of different pieces that you can put into somebody's home. There is a piece of the technology that you can tell the technology when somebody is having trouble getting into the low key place, getting ready for bed. You can basically say to the system, different systems, okay, it's you can set a system to say, okay, it's relax time. The lights dim, the shades go down, and it starts to get people ready to transition into that quiet time. We also use the MedMinder, which you saw in Ray's. There's a ton of different kinds of devices to help someone electronically receive their medications. The Cook Stop, which you saw by his stove, the iGuard, and the safety sensor are all devices that monitor through movement, artificial intelligence. So if somebody's not standing in front of the stove for a certain period of time, it will just shut the stove off until they come back for safety purposes. The safety sensor for the microwave is a great device that I need for my popcorn. It actually senses the chemical that food sends right before it burns, and it shuts the microwave off. So you're never going to burn something in the microwave if you have a safety sensor. Claris Companion helps with that video chatting capability. It's a device that all you have to do is put a person's picture on the screen. They can hit the picture and call mom and video chat with mom. So it's not a complex system. They have to go in like getting onto Teams. This one's really easy for them. They just tap and go. There's all different kinds of GPS tracking, voice assistants for Alexa and Google, and you'll see that a little later when I show you Sabrina. Automatic door openers, ADA modifications, and bathroom and kitchen technology, which people are, I think, more used to than the other. So here's just a picture of some of those. The cook stop is up here. There's the MedMinder. This is a video doorbell. This device wrapped in blue is the Claris Companion. The Angel Sense is one type of video GPS monitoring that you can actually listen in. So a lot of times when a parent has a child that's under 18, they want this device because if the child is out with a mentor or something or in a car, it actually tracks the mileage of the car, so you know how fast the car is going, and you can listen in to see what's going on with the child, and you can talk back and forth. This is a reading device, so if this OrCam on the bottom, if people have literacy issues, you can just aim this at a product and it will tell you what you're buying. So if you're allergic to mushrooms, it will let you know that there's mushrooms in that spaghetti sauce you were going to put in your cart. And these are smart soles for people who may not wear a wearable on their arm. You can slip it into their shoes and it can track them that way if that's needed. In the area of health, these are some of the other health monitors, but the Claris Companion also measures blood pressure and weight and temperature. There's also devices that measure glucose. The Claris Companion also allows you to connect to your telehealth meetings if you have those with your doctors. And then there's a whole continuum of services. I stuck this in here because some people can cook and some people can't. They can't cook doesn't mean they can't live independently. A lot of people can't cook and live in their own apartments. So we're in the middle of doing a cooking class. We got grants, so we're learning how to, we're running classes to teach people the basic cooking class. And we're thinking that if they can't cook independently, maybe they would use then a Heston Q cookware that walks you through how to cook your meal and tells you when to flip the burger and when to flip the whatever you're cooking, and cooks it right to perfect temperature. Like I said, we're using the Heston Q for the cooking classes. If somebody needs a little more assistance in that, there's a June oven that's really a plug and play. So you put your chicken in and you plug it in, a sensor into the chicken, and you, or your salmon, whatever you're cooking, and plug it into the stove, and the stove recognizes it and says, oh, you're cooking salmon. Do you want to bake it or broil it? And then it takes over and does it for you, and your meal is perfect every time. And then if people can't do those, there's also a Meals on Wheels option that people can have their meals delivered in. A lot of people order meals to go. So that's a very common option for people nowadays. This is a picture of the Heston Q and the June oven. We have both of those available here. We can give demos if anybody wants one. They're really exciting new devices. There's also social communication. So this is the Claris Companion, again, up at the top, that can do all of that. There is the Alexa and the Google Nest that you can do drop-ins. Family, as you'll see with Sabrina, can drop in on each other and talk to each other. There is a device for the elderly you see on the left side that really concentrates on social isolation and helps you with your mind and asks you questions and learns your family and asks you about your grandchildren or your friends or whatever's going on. And we're finding that some of our guys like that if they're feeling a little isolated. And on the bottom, you'll see a Facebook portal. This is a great device that goes onto the TV so you can see the whole room when you're talking to somebody, and it follows the person around the room if they're a little mobile. And then there's communication and barrier issues. So there's Google Relate and Voice It is new technology coming out that is learning to de-garble people's voice. So if somebody has a voice that usually is understood by the family or the staff, but nobody else can understand it, these devices can learn their method of speaking. It learns it through a trial period, and then when they're talking, it degarbles their voice for other people so everybody can understand them. There's translators that you can do if somebody is Spanish and they don't speak English. They're very easy translators. And then there's your typical pro lo quo to go, which is, you know, typical communication devices that people use who can't communicate. For physical barriers, we talked about the smart blinds. There's smart locks that you can open the door by a key. If they can't use a key, they can use their thumbprint or their pupil of their eye. If they can't use that, they might be able to use a fob or a code. So there's all different ways now to enter the door. These smart locks are nice too, because it allows you to know when that door is open, along with the sensors that could be on the door through the remote monitoring system. We have automatic door openers that work really well for people who don't close their door when they're supposed to, so that the door automatically closes. We have sensors that will let us know when somebody's left their door open. This also helps with people who can't open and close their doors, and therefore they can tell Alexa to open the door and the automatic door opener can open for them. For people who have difficulty cleaning their houses, there are now smart vacuums. There's all kinds of technology you can put in the house. Even over to the right, you can see pull down counters. If somebody couldn't reach up, you can have shelving that comes down for people. For vision, we talked a little bit about the My Eye or the OrCam Read, which reads for people. And if somebody is has less vision than that, there's a blind square navigation app that a lot of people are doing for their areas. And when people who can't see it all get on this, it actually walks them, like you get a GPS, take a right here, take a right there. This actually walks them through buildings. So if they're blind and they have, you know, the animal or the stick, they don't need a staff with them in a new building, as long as it has that service. For literacy, they have reading pens. They have the KNFB reader that you take a picture of anything that's in writing and it reads it back to you, which is a really nice app. We like the OrCam Read. It's a little device that you hold up, which is, you can see that in the person's hand, you just point it at the picture and click it, and then it will tell you what it says. A lot of our guys who can't read walk around the community blind because they don't know what those signs say. They don't know what's out there, and now they can walk around with devices and read for themselves. There's always risks. So we have devices that address risk. There's those personal emergency response systems. There's obviously Ring doorbells and sensors on the doors and way to help with that. There are on the bottom, you can see the GPS tracking. On the left side, you see the little patch. Well, this patch is a GPS tracking device. So it can be sewn onto the clothes or a backpack or wherever, a jacket. And as long as they have that patch on, you can track them on your phone. So there are all kinds of different pieces of technology to help. This one on the bottom that says AL or AI, that's a new device we've just found out of Canada. We're very, very excited about it. And it lets you know the emotional change someone's having. So if someone's off, they can wear this watch. And if all of a sudden they're getting very upset or very happy, you would get alerted that there's a huge change in emotion. And as people work with this device, they learn to read the person better. They know that, okay, this is how the person's acting when they get excited. This is how they're acting when they're sad. But if you're a parent and somebody's going off with a staff, it allows you to know that the person is having, you know, a big emotional change, and you can reach out to that staff and say, what's going on? And they can say, oh, they just met somebody, they're so excited, or they're really struggling and sad. And it also is saying that it lets you know before it's visible to the person. So it lets you start to catch it early to know that it's coming. So that's a really new device. We're getting two of them here at the center so we can start trialing them and working with them. I put a list here, and Greg, you have the slide presentation. These are just a bunch of different remote monitoring services. The ones in yellow are the ones available right now or becoming available in Connecticut. So that, you know, may help people make decisions. And then I'm just going to walk through really quick these slides. So this is our ARM system. I talked about it a lot already. These are the devices that get installed in the arms: sensors and doorbells, cameras if you need them, door locks, temperature gauges, all of those things get installed in the house. It gets installed, the staff of the family gets trained. You have access to it on any device to know what's going on with the person. You decide what kind of alerts you want to get on what pieces. So if you're worried about somebody leaving the house, you can get an alert every time the door opens. If you're worried about somebody eating too much or not eating, you can get alerts on every time somebody opens a refrigerator or a cabinet. So it really is individualized for the person. And then all of that goes on to one platform. So you're not opening 50 different devices, one for the doorbell and one for the blinds and one for the, you know, the emergency device. Everything's on one device. And then the nice part about all of these systems is you can get analytical data. This will show you if they're having an average day. This is showing that they had more sleep time than usual. They had a lot more kitchen visits, and they were going in and out of the house more often. So it gives you a chance to look and say, ooh, maybe the person's a little anxious. So let's get in there and find out what's going on, or give them a wellness check. I don't know why it's not, oh, there it goes, sorry. And this is the Sabrina video, so I will show that to you in just a second, because I'm gonna have to find it now, because I took it off in order to send it. It won't send with that on it. So give me just a quick second. If anybody has any questions while I'm looking for the video.
Shannon Jacobino, DDS ombudsperson. Pat, do you have a question? Pat Tyler?
I do. Pat Tyler, parent. I have a lot of questions, but I won't hog all the time. I'm curious, with all these monitoring devices, having recently been through this, do you have any issues regarding having to get some kind of prior approval from the Human Rights Committee?
So I work mostly in the South region, and I know the other regions are working on different levels, but in the South region, we've been working with this since 2014, so they're a little more familiar. So we originally presented all of this to the Human Rights Committee in the South region, and as long as the people are using it for independence and not to, it's not set to restrict movement, it's really to help them live more independently, it is fine to go forward. However, if they're using cameras, and we only usually use them for training, but if the agency is using cameras, not the families, but the agencies, then it needs to be reported to HRC to make sure that the cameras are being controlled. Like in our agency, when we're doing training, we say, okay, Kat wants to start training somebody in their group home, so she's going to train from 3 to 5. So our person who controls the camera, and that's the only person who controls it, gives Kat the access from 3 to 5. And as soon as that training is over, the camera's shut off, and nobody has access to that until the, you know, the trainer who controls the camera hooks it to the next one. And that's why we control the cameras, because we don't want anybody having random access to watch somebody's lives. Now that's an agency. Families are different. We've had these systems put in the family's home, and the family had cameras throughout the entire house. And they were able to, you know, work with them that way, because it's not, the HRC was not needed for the families.
Okay, well, okay, I don't want to hog all the time. I'll just say this. It's really disconcerting to feel like there's such stark differences between what you're saying and what happens in other regions. I don't really understand like how there can be such huge gap in the understanding of the use of these devices, and certainly hope that these meetings get us all as a statewide on the same page, because that's certainly not the case in the region where I'm operating, for sure. But then my second question, and you can just answer it briefly and then I'll stop talking, is, and again, it's Pat Tyler, parent. I did a bad job of saying my name. When you went to implement these changes, all these safety procedures, did you find that there was any resistance in the culture of the staff supporting people? Because it's a pretty big shift. I mean, it's kind of like
Absolutely.
everything's into the light at that stage of the game, right? And I'm just curious how, if you have any words of advice or summary as to how you were able to do that successfully.
Absolutely. We've been working on training for staff to shift that culture for one of caregiving to community support and independent support. We've brought in national experts. We usually use Tom Pomeranz. We found he's the most effective working with the staff. We just brought him in for our independent living conference to meet with families. But we constantly work with our staff, and Kat can talk about this. We're constantly training, and it is a different direction. The agency, everybody has to make that shift, and it takes a while for change. So you're absolutely right. It's not an overnight switch that goes on and off. Some people get it, some people don't. So it really takes time, and there's a lot of training involved.
Thank you.
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I think Lena Esposito has her hand up. Lena?
Yes, I want to ask if DDS can have some fundings for these electronic devices and for the cooking classes, or it's going to be all private in the future?
Well, we are actually, if I can answer that, Greg, first, this is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. DDS has all of the devices. It's built into their waiver. So if the person is on the waiver, they have access to assistive technology. As far as the cooking classes, we just set them up, and I've already reached out to DDS, and we're going to be looking at figuring out how to, once we know the cost per person, working with DDS to fund that so that people from around the state can participate in those cooking classes. And our chef we have our cooking devices travel, so we can actually set up cooking classes around the state. It doesn't have to be in the center of the state. So we're really trying to do that and reach out across the state to make sure the services are available.
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I just wanted to address one of the things that Pat had mentioned. And this is really kudos to Mid-State ARC. One of the reasons why I think the South region, things are a little different in the region, is they really took the reins in becoming creative and looking at things differently and establishing an assisted technology center. And that happens to be in the South region, which is why there's some differences in the regions. And I think the work they're doing is spreading and hopefully will expand with other agencies doing it and more involvement. And they are working and doing a lot of things now statewide as well. So I think the other regions are catching up to the good work they started doing in 2014.
Right, and thank you, Greg. This is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. DDS has been a very good partner in this. I know there's glitches throughout the different regions, but they're really working hard to try to get it statewide. And we're working hard with them to make sure that's there. So hopefully we won't, after all of our ARPA meetings, hopefully it gets a little smoother. Do you want me to show the video before we continue? This is a really nice one of somebody who just moved in.
This is Shannon Jacobino, DDS Ombudsperson. I think Denise has a question. Denise Palladino.
Thanks. This is Denise Palladino, Self-Determination Director in the South region. I just wanted to let Pat know I'm not sure which region services are being provided, but I know in the West region, the old ABD Ability Beyond also has a technology center that they are, assisting with a lending library and assisting individuals and families with assistive tech.
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I think we're ready to move forward, Pam.
Okay, let me see if I can find what I did with it. I'm trying to move around because I know I'm controlling the screen and I couldn't figure out how to not control it. So give me just 1 second here. I'm going to move it back over. Okay, can you see the little thing saying moving into an apartment?
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I don't think we have anything up.
Okay, so let me see if I can share. Can you see that now?
Again, DDS, yep, can see it.
All right.
This is Sabrina, my daughter. We trying to get her to live out on her own because she's been with me all her life. It's a huge step for her. I love her and I want her to be independent. I want her to be on her own. I'm not always going to be here. I think this is the best opportunity that Sabrina is going to get. She can call me through Alexa, which she did this weekend. If I ring the doorbell, she can answer from inside and see who it is. Also, she can open her door with the fog. If she's here and they do not detect motion, they can know if something is wrong. And also they have bed sensors. If she get out of bed in the middle of the night and she doesn't go back, they know that she's up and wrong. If she get out of the tub, she fall, all she have to do is hit their salon and they know that she fell. If she put the microwave on and walk away and she gone too long, the microwave will shut off. If she put the stove on and walked away, the stove will shut off. This is great for Sabrina. If I keep her home and something happened to me, she's gonna be in the system. I don't want her in the system. She could learn to be on her own. She could be independent. I'm just trying to get her set up for life.
All right. I love that video. I think it was just great of Sabrina and her mom to share that. We're making a bunch of different videos out there. We do have a series of 6 videos that talks about the assessment process and assistive technology. We can also send you those links to those videos. I know it's a lot of information. If people are interested in learning more, they can give us a call. We can meet with them and go over information a little slower. And we'll send you all that information that you're requesting.
Okay, thank you. This is Greg McMahon, DDS. A question on Sabrina's video. Is she receiving IHS in that or environment, or is that remote support? And
it's both. This is Pam from Midstate. I'll let Kat answer that, but it is both. But you can go ahead, Kat, and give all the information.
Yes. Hi, this is Kat, Director of Community Integration for Midstate ARC. Sabrina does receive both in-home services as well as the remote monitoring. When she moved over, you know, as Mom stated, she's one of the individuals that was a great story. I mean, Mom's absolutely amazing, but the reality is Mom was getting older. Mom was really, really worried that if something happened to her, Sabrina was just going to end up in a group home, which is her biggest fear. But then again, like I was saying earlier, when you're working with families, that fear of how are they going to be able to afford to live on their own? Are they going to have enough supports? Are they going to feel safe? And then the transition, you know, Mom wants her on her own, but then it's scared to have her on her own. So we worked really, really hard with this family with kind of transitioning her into her own apartment, and did it on a really slow basis, kind of increasing the nights. The echo we put in there just because, again, it was tough for Mom to let go. It was tough for Sabrina to leave Mom's home, but then having the echo in there, they could kind of drop in on each other and still interact, talk, laugh. They've watched shows together at the same time through the echo, which I thought was awesome, really creative. If she's had family members that visited Mom's house and she wasn't there, they've been able to kind of connect through the echo show. And again, just really being a mix. So when we looked at her IHS supports, we really tried to figure out where does she truly, what hours of the day is she truly going to need a staff physically in there to help support her versus what hours could we look at where the remote monitoring is just enough support to be able to keep her safe and comfortable in her apartment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I think Pat has a question.
Hi, Pat Tyler, parent. Just one other question about what you said, Pam, or maybe it was Kat, about the cluster supports. When that's being used, the cluster supports, let's just say there's more than one person there. Are you able, if there's two people living in a place, are they able to seamlessly go back and forth between a cluster support, or does one person specifically have to be named to, like, Jane, and another person have to be named, another staff person be assigned to Marjorie, so that, like, in the reporting, they're separated? That's just a question.
So Kat, do you want me to grab it or you want?
Either or is fine. This is Kat, Director of Community Integration, Midstate ARC. So the staff could definitely work with both of them and kind of work in between. So they're in this, if you're talking about them living in the same apartment together as roommates, or if there's two different people living in the cluster in different apartments.
No, in the same location.
Okay, so they could be in the same location and the staff is working between the two of them. And it really obviously just depends on the type of supports that they're doing. You know, there is the group supports, and then there's also, they could kind of bounce between. So say if somebody's 9 to 11, they're working with Joe, and then 11 to 1, they're working with Bill. It, you know, it really, we kind of figure it out on who's going to need support during what time. And it's really just, it's based on their needs.
Pat Tyler, parent, is there any issue with the reporting of that staff time in terms of reimbursement? I mean, I don't know your system, so I don't know how that's set up, but.
I think if I could jump in, Kat, for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I think what Kat was trying to say, Pat, this is Pam Fields from Midstate ARC, is that there's a couple different ways to bill that or to record it. Is if it's individualized and they're working directly with one person, they would bill IHS for that individualized person. If they're working together as a group, there's a group IHS billing now that there didn't used to be. So now we can bill if they're working together in a group, or they can work with the other person. So the staff just has to code in and out on what they're working on, and our staff are learning to get better with that.
Okay, thank you.
This is Greg from DDS. I think Joanne and Lena, I'll start with Joanne, have their hands up.
Okay, first of all, Joanne Melise from Living Innovations. Pam, Kat, that was fabulous. So thank you for a very in-depth mini overview of some of the really cool stuff you're doing. So just wanted to thank you. I had three questions. In the very beginning, you talked about sitting down with people and discussing what their options are, where they want to live. In my experience, that's a really tough thing for a lot of people. You know, they know where they live now. That's the norm, be it with family or in group home, but they don't have a very clear understanding of what the different options are. How do you address that?
This is Pam Fields from Midstate ARC. I think in the beginning, when somebody's not familiar, it's really where that connection is to the family. So they may want them to live closer to the family or in a town. And then, like Raymond, as they move out there and get to know the community themselves, then they start to say, I want to move here. And Kat can answer that. We have people moving back and forth all over the place.
Yes. Hi, this is Kat, Director of Community Integration, Midstate. So I mean, it's definitely challenging. Anytime there's change, there's always resistance because we fear the unknown. That's just what it is. When I'm meeting with the families, I try to give as much as a detailed explanation of the, you know, the type of services that are out there. I always like to do tours too, especially for the cluster. So if it's somebody who's, you know, looking to move out on their own for the very first time, you know, the first time I'm meeting, you know, whether it's in person or if it's virtual, then I like to set up a second meeting for them to be able to see the cluster, what it looks like. You know, I've had some people that live in the cluster who are more than willing to let people kind of come in and see their apartments and talk to them as well, just to kind of really give somebody an idea of where they're going. Because you're right, just hearing it is one thing, but actually like seeing it and being able to see somebody else who's living it makes all the difference.
Yeah, thank you, Kat, because I do believe a choice between a known and an unknown is not a choice. So I'm glad that you do those things, because people always have that hierarchy of the ultimate goal, you know, is to live on their own in the apartment, but then we have issues of loneliness. So I think alone with having somebody to love is a good thing too. But when you were talking, or the slide demonstrated what is currently available, are those services that you provide, that your agency provides, or are they all the options for the state? Because I did not see community companion homes.
I thought I had them listed. Maybe I didn't. This is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC, and we do not offer that option. So I should have put that in there because I was trying to cover all of the options and I left that one out. Sorry about that. But that is an option. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is McMahon DDS. We are going to be adding a presentation on CCH as part of this series of kind of education for our committee. So there will be some presentations coming on CCH, probably the next meeting, I believe.
Okay. And finally, this is Joanne Melise, Living Innovations. I was very much blown away by your presentation on technology. And I don't know if this question has come up yet, but as you support people to live as independent lives as they can and using of the assisted technology, which again, fabulous, what is the risk, or have you seen any risk to the impact on their LON score? Because now they're more independent and because of the technology, have you seen, or is there a risk of LON score reduction?
I would think that maybe somebody who is learning the new skills to move independently could actually lower their LON skills. We have not seen that. We've moved several people with a LON score of 7 and 6 into their own apartments, and they've, like Raymond, because of his medical needs and some of his other issues, he had a LON score of 7, and he moved in and he's still a LON score of 7, because the technology is still providing that bridge that he needs to be independent. Without that technology, it wouldn't work for him. So whether it's a staff that's providing the support or a technology providing the support, I think it still is reflected. And I'm sure Denise or Greg can jump in on that, but we haven't seen it. Kat, I don't know if you've seen it. We haven't. No,
I haven't.
Yeah, this is Greg McMahon, DDS. I mean, the LON is intended when being scored to indicate that what the person's needs are if they didn't have the support. So like Pam said, if the support is either AT or a human, the support need is still there. So but you know, we may have some people who didn't like having staff in their apartment and acted out because of it, and now they're living alone. They don't act out anymore. Maybe their behavior score would change. But I think overall, we're looking at what the score is measuring what their life would be if they didn't have support, what their level of need would be. Are you all set, Joanne? Okay. Lena, you had a question?
Yes, Lena Esposito, Connecticut Family Support Network South Center Coordinator. My question is that if somebody is in a group home, can the person has the still the waiver to get access to the assistant devices, or it has to be that they has to be only when you leave it independent?
No, everybody on the waiver has access to assistive technology.
Nice and clear. Thank you so much.
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I did have a question. One of the things that as a committee we're looking to do is hopefully have a list of services that people may can use throughout the department, and talking about the benefits of that, and then also talking about the risks that come with that or the concerns. And I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the challenges for people who are using these services, and some of the hurdles they've had to overcome.
This is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. Kat's probably going to take the lead on that, but I just wanted to start by saying that I think the biggest, most important piece to this is the honesty and open communication. So sometimes people won't share certain needs because they're afraid it will prevent them from going in certain directions. And for these options, you need to know all of it so you can build in those safety nets for all those protections. So we have run into some cases where we weren't given the full information on the person and they had some significant risk issues that then we had to work around. So Kat, I'll let you talk a little bit about that, but that's why we developed our risk assessment.
Yes. Hi, it's Kat, Director of Community Integration, Mid-State ARC. So, I mean, what Pam said is where I would have started too. I think that our biggest hurdle is the teams, not being so upfront. When I'm meeting with everyone, I always really try to tell them, like, give me worst case scenario, because worst case scenario doesn't mean that it's happening all the time. It just means worst case scenario, potentially this could happen. So at least we're prepared for, what support somebody may require. And again, we want to make sure that we're putting people in the best, safest environment for them, with the supports that are going to be needed in order to make them successful. Another hurdle that I think we kind of faced with the transitioning was Sabrina, as I was stating, that challenge of, family wants to see their loved one out there living independently, but it's scary because we fear the unknown. So that fear of, our loved one being out there by themselves and you're not being there, right there by their side to support them day in and day out, which you've done their whole entire life. It's hard to kind of get that. It's okay. You're safe. You're in your own apartment. Your loved ones are still here. You still get to see them. So just trying to work with the family and the individual to find that balance and make sure that everybody is feeling safe and secure. Because it's not just about the family feeling secure. The individual we're supporting needs to feel safe and secure too. Like, everybody has to believe and buy into it in order for it to be successful.
And this is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. There are certain behaviors or actions that prevent people from living independently. So if somebody had an issue of being a predator for small children or something, they had that interest and you needed to have staff interact, there's no way to what we call tech that up. There's no way to have a technology that would prevent that access without a human being. So we know in that case that they would always require 24-hour staffing. You could do some, assistive technology maybe within the house to give them independence within the 24 hours, in the house, but not without a staff there because it just isn't safe. The other one we find, and we're working hard to try to find some solutions, if someone is, and I always try to find the right word to say this, they want to so bad be participating in the community like everyone else. They want so bad to have boyfriends. They want so bad to be out there doing what they see everybody else doing in the community. And sometimes the pieces they are seeing are behaviors that we really don't want people to engage in. So if you have someone who's going to meet up with somebody and take off to California in a drop of a hat, right now, there's no way that we can keep that safe just with technology, because as soon as you're not there, we have someone who's very creative And she would, if you tried to even put a tracking device on, she would Google it and figure out how to get it off. And, you know, she knows how to break through all of those security things on the phone and the devices and get around. And there's been many situations, even with living at home and with our staff, that she's exposed herself to some significant safety challenges. And so even though that particular person, the mom, would love to see her living as independent as possible, we haven't found a way to keep that safe. So we do not recommend her for independent living because we haven't found a way to for that behavior to make sure that the person is safe.
Okay, thank you. This is Greg McMahon, DDS. I think Mayor Cruz has her hand up.
Yeah, Maricruz Ortiz, Benford, Connecticut. I had a question regarding your video technology, like the Skyping. Who actually answers the call? Is it a staff or clinician when they utilize that?
This is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. It really depends on who they're talking to. So it, the staff, they can use the staff if they're looking for assistance. With Sabrina, her video chatting was really based for the mom so that they could communicate back and forth. During COVID, a lot of our people living in our homes were all given assistive technology devices like that, a Claris Companion, in order to be able to chat with their parents, because the Claris Companion we found was the easiest access. But to answer your question, Mayor Cruz, it really depends on who they could communicate with anyone. It could be a family, it could be a staff, it could be a friend, it could be their doctor through telehealth. It really could be whatever the need is.
Okay, this is Greg McMahon, DDS. Are there other questions, comments from our group?
Shannon Jacobino, DDS Ombudsperson. It looks like Pat Tyler has a question.
I just wanted to make Pat Tyler, parent, just wanted to make a comment that I really applaud you, Pam and Kat. I think the technology is awesome, but honestly, it's really more where you're coming from and your attitude and perspective that's making that technology have a good purpose. So I'm just happy to know that you two exist and that you're doing the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shannon Jacobino, DDS Ombudsperson. Lena Esposito has a question.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank this is a beautiful assistant device. I work with a lot with my daughter. Then thank you for that. Then when a child is autistic, it comes to behaviors and then explosive, then sometimes it's a little difficult to manage it. Do you guys have any anything that you can work with behaviors or alarms? So I know that they have the insults that you can figure it out when the people is upset, but sometimes when they are at home they don't use tools. Then they have a lot of sensations. Then ask you. Thank you.
This is Pam from Mid-State ARC. Thank you for that question, Lena. And again, to just reiterate, it's so individualized. So there are different tools that you can use in the home for the individuals, depending on whether, like you see, they have the little patches you could sew on their clothes, and you could have a patch on every outfit. So no matter what they were wearing, you would be able to track them through things like that. We have that new watch wearable device that hopefully is going to allow us to know when somebody's emotions are changing, so we can start to read them better and start to maybe interact with them. Canada is coming out with some really nice data showing changes in people's behaviors by these wearables. So I think as technology grows, and it's changing so fast every day, you're going to see more and more pieces come out. But there's a lot of stuff that can be melded with your supports and natural supports to make it better and easier for people.
This is Greg McMahon, DDS. Mayor Cruz, did you have another question? Is your hand just still up?
Mari Cruz Ortiz, Benford, Connecticut. No, I forgot to put it down. Sorry.
All right, Greg McMahon, DDS. I think we're nearing the end of our allotted time for our meeting today. I just wanted to kind of, in a little wrap up, is we have been, the Transformation Committee has put forth a draft of proposed incentives that we are going to be getting out to the committee to take a look at and to begin talking about how we can communicate effectively to individuals and families about those incentives. And this conversation and the ones to come and the one we had last week about self-direction are all important because those are the things that we're incentivizing. So all the good work that Mid-State ARC is doing are going to be part of our incentive, as our CCH when we talk about them, and as was self-direction. And we're also going to be talking a bit about some of the day program options at an upcoming meeting that will be part of the incentives. So this is a very important conversation to learn all this stuff so that we know what's being incentivized. And you can expect, I believe we should have a draft of those out before the next meeting, so we can begin to look at them and start talking about how to communicate well with families. If there's no other questions or anything, I'd first like to thank Pam and Kat for, that was a really nice presentation. I think it was very helpful for everybody to really learn. I know I've learned a lot, and I've been working in the South region for a long time. There's lots I didn't know. So thank you very much. It was really helpful. We have our next meeting is Thursday, September 29th. Remember, we are kind of breaking from our every other Monday at 10 o'clock. And if there's nothing else.
This is Shannon Jacobino, DDS ombudsperson. Greg, I believe Pam Fields had her hand up.
I'm sorry, Greg, this is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. I just wanted to say as a closure that, you know, we're trying really hard across the state to change this culture and get moving in this direction. It's going to take a while and that's hopefully with the committees that help. But one of the things that is important to let you guys know is that agencies who are moving forward with this are also looking at blending agencies, so that when we have a cluster, if somebody else is receiving supports from another agency, but they want to be in a cluster and that agency doesn't have a cluster, they can still move into the cluster, use our overnight supports, but their day supports would be from their other agency. So we're really looking at how to make it the best for the person across the state. So I just wanted to add that piece that hopefully will help.
All right, thank you.
Shannon Jacobino, DDS ombudsperson. Before we sign off, I think Adriana has a question.
Yes, good morning, Adriana Ramirez from Connecticut Family Support Network. So Pam, I think you answered my question I was going to ask is, some of the cluster, my understanding, the clusters are managed by a specific agency, correct? And that you were saying you're looking at doing blended agencies. So because I know talking to parents, one of the questions was, if they're on self-determination, and like you said, they have multiple, they want to choose their agencies. The way the current system is, the clusters, they can't choose their agency. They have to use the agency that's managing the cluster. So it kind of eliminates self-determination.
It would, right now, the way it goes is an agency decides to do a cluster situation with multiple apartments to cover that overnight staff. There's a level of funding that has to be reached for the overnight staff to be covered. So that is the issue. But what we're changing, I think, to answer your question, is that they could do self-directives for all those day hours and weekend hours. So they would share that overnight staff, the staff that's available for the 25 apartments at night monitoring the assistive technology, to be there in case of an emergency, but their actual staff could stay with that other place, either self-directed or another agency.
Now, is that current or is that what's looking to be done?
I know we do it in our agency. And I don't know, Greg and Denise could answer for other agencies, but we do it. We have a cluster in Meriden and we're going to be opening another apartment building. We're working with a developer now in Orange, Connecticut. But I think agencies are going to learn over time that they need to do that.
Yeah, this is Greg McMahon, DDS. We do have a number of families who combine self-direction with agency supports. And they may get some IHS through an agency and additional IHS hours or respite hours or something else through self-direction. So it's not highly unusual for that to be blended. So I think people in a cluster would more than likely be able to continue to self-direct.
Yeah, this is Denise Palladino, SD Director. To kind of couple on what Greg said and Pam's question about, providers working collaboratively. We do have a few cases where you have self-direction in a combo of multiple agencies, not necessarily in a cluster that I'm aware of. There probably are examples out there. But the thing just to remember is that, the behavioral piece, if there's a clinical need, that folks are utilizing the same strategy. So always making sure that things are across continuum when you're using multiple facets in terms of supports. But yeah, it's allowable through our waiver and folks do have that flexibility and choice.
This is Shannon Jacobino, DDS. I'm Bud's person. Pam, do you still have your hand up or is that from before?
Oh, sorry, no.
And we are at our time now. So Greg, I don't know if you want to close the meeting.
Yes. So I think we're ready to adjourn. And again, thank you very much, Pam and Kat, for presenting to us. It was fantastic. And we will adjourn. And see everybody on the 29th.
Did Kevin R say the September 29th, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.